Hi. This session, we are going to talk about sharing experiences as a form of contributive diplomacy. This session, why don't we start with Eileen? Eileen, we all have vague idea that Korea was very poor right after independence and after the Korean War. What was Korea like in the 1950s and 1960s?
When we look at South Korea in the 1950s, we can see that it looked very different from what we know of South Korea today. The period from 1945 to 1953 is often described as a time of political, social chaos, as well as economic disruption. Since during that time, Korea did not only experience liberation from Japanese colonial rule, but also the 3-year-long Korean War from 1950 to 1953, which in the end led to the division into North and South Korea. Considering the number of people who died during that time and the cities and towns that were destroyed, the war had destructive consequences for both countries. While North Korea seemed to be able to create a foundation for further development based on continuous agricultural production and increasing investments in heavy industries, South Korea was, especially in the early post-war period, mostly characterized by political corruption and an unstable system leading to food shortages and continuous poverty, as well as a stagnant economic growth. Thus, the country was not only dependent on US aid and support from foreign countries in terms of financial aid, but also in, for instance, the provision of wheat, cotton, raw materials, and technical assistance, contributing to the development of South Korea's light industry. Between 1954 and 1961, the total amount of financial aid exceeded 50% of GDP. However, when looking at South Korea in more detail, we can also see some important cornerstones for its further development. The authoritarian government under Ri Seung-man emphasized the reconstruction of industrial plants and infrastructure that had been destroyed by the war. Additionally, land reforms were implemented supposedly in an attempt to address challenges regarding land inequality and the redistribution of land from large landowners to tenant farmers. Related to that, the Korean government adjusted policies and sold all liquidated properties from the Japanese rule to civilian corporate buyers. To summarize, although South Korea was characterized by poverty and political instability during the 1950s, it developed into a capitalist government emphasizing free market competition and private enterprises.
Thank you, Eileen. That indeed sounds very sad. Witness the tragic scenes in Korea in 1950s and 60s. Il Sagong wrote a book titled Korea in the World Economy. And in the book, he wrote, in the early 1960s, Korea was suffering from all the ills associated with a typical developing nation. This is a graph that shows economic growth of Korea and Ghana. When Korea ended the Korean War in 1953, Korea was the second poorest country next to Bangladesh. It was poorer than most countries in Africa, such as Côte d'Ivoire and Congo. On the other hand, when Ghana became independent from Britain in 1957, it was economically the most advanced nation in Africa, apart from South Africa. And Ghana was known for the most potential in sub-Saharan Africa. Ghana had bigger foreign reserves than that of India, and did not have pressing need to seek foreign aid at the time of independence. Ghana's social and economic infrastructure, such as telecommunications, roads, health system, and education, was far more developed than those of Korea, where, unfortunately, 2/3 of its roads were destroyed during the Korean War. In short, Korea cannot be said it had more wealth or more potential than Ghana in the early 1960s. Yet, development thinkers often compare the two countries against another. It's because these two countries share some significant similarities. They have similar size of land mass, and in terms of monetary term, Korea and Ghana started at a similar point. But as you see in this graph, today Korea's GNI reaches to 36,000 USD, while Ghana's GNI is hovering around 2,400 USD, meaning an average Korean is 50 times wealthier than average Ghanaian. Many observers were intrigued by this disparate path of economic growth. And lots of studies indeed try to find why. What happened? If you remember our previous sessions, I explained that Korea Development Institute invited government officials from aid-receiving countries, and they offered a program of sharing Korea's economic growth experiences. Sharing what happened in Korea has become a flagship program of Korea's ODA ever since. This initial training program, which started in 1982, has become modularized. And now Korea has a knowledge-sharing program developed by the same institute. Now, let me invite Eileen again. Eileen, can you tell us a bit about knowledge-sharing program?
An important program referring to the Korean development experience is the so-called knowledge-sharing program. It was established in 2004 by the Korean Ministry of Economy and Finance in order to share the Korean development experience, including policy implications and possible contributions to sustainable prosperity around the world. Therefore, the KSP represents a platform for development cooperation, especially in economic and political context, where knowledge is shared with partner countries in different areas such as environment, agricultural policy, health, and many more. By doing so, Korea aims to contribute to the inclusive socio-economic development of countries within that cooperation platform and strengthen international partnerships. Currently, over 89 countries are part of the KSP, more than 1,400 policy consultations and capacity building workshops had been conducted, and the KSP took part in hosting the G20 summit in Seoul in 2020, underlining its significant impact in the field of development. As the name already implies, the foundation of the program builds knowledge, since knowledge is not only considered a driving force for innovation and growth, but also a key factor in increasing the effectiveness of development cooperation. In the context of the KSP, knowledge sharing supports mutual learning, offering new opportunities and commonly responding to current challenges and megatrends, such as the Fourth Industrial Revolution or climate change. Over the years, the knowledge sharing program has increased the effectiveness of its development cooperation model by providing a growing number of policy research advisory and training programs customized to the individual country's development phase and needs. What makes the program even more important is that besides promoting success factors for sustainable development, unfavorable aspects of development and challenges and failures of the Korean development model are acknowledged as well. Therefore, by establishing the knowledge sharing program, Korea realized its ability to deliver solutions for institutional building and share operational expertise for capacity building. The program is additionally strengthened by its coordinating agencies, KDI, the Export-Import Bank of Korea, and KOTRA, all of them having their main focus on different areas important for sustainable development.
Thank you, Eileen. I hope now you understand the elements and structure of Korea's knowledge sharing program. This is end of this session, and in the following session, we are going to talk about the strength and limits of knowledge sharing. Thank you.